that could be looked upon as, well, now you're giving Denver an advantage. But I think at this point, Silver's got to be happy with the way that the playoffs are running. Although, some of the calls have been a little bit questionable. Referees again front and center under the microscope. There were a couple calls during the Knicks Pacers game that came up in which had people scratching their heads. There were a couple other calls that were mentioned in a couple of the other series, and this is only because it's been dominating talk radio for the past 2 days, where now it just seems like the referees are starting to make the game about them. And as a referee, as a professional, one of the last things that you want to do is have the spotlight shined on you.
Yes. Yeah, Murray even did this like money to the referee. I guess, he's referencing maybe somebody's paying somebody, and of course, gambling.
Yeah, somebody's on the take.
Right. I mean, which is a bunch of nonsense, CJ. Wembanyama gets Rookie of the Year. No surprise there. He might even get Defensive Player of the Year, the way he played defense with his block shots and rebounding and all that stuff. I wouldn't surprise if he gets that. But he's, I saw this guy. I saw a video of this guy when he played in France, how he studied films on different basketball players, Durant, Pistol Pete Maravich, the dribbling stuff he did. And, I knew right away that he was going to be something else coming to the NBA. I was just worried about his thin body type, But if you look at it, CJ, Parrish had a thin body. Kareem had a thin body. There's a lot of players that played for a long time that had that kind of body type. And I think that Wembanyama may be that generational player people say he was going to be.
I think he will, because of the fact, you brought up a great point right there. You had players like Kareem Olajuwon, who was thin, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was thin. Even Larry Bird, to an extent, was a little bit on the thin side. Kevin McHale. I mean, if you even want to go to more recent history, how about Reggie Miller?
Yeah,
Reggie Miller was like he looked like that if a big gust of wind came by, it would pick him up and take him 3 blocks back.
Sure.
But he was still able to maneuver. He was very quick down the court, made plays, and he made a nice career for himself in the NBA. So I think that it's good to start seeing a little bit of the past generational type player come and be able to kind of bring. I hate to make this like a Star Wars reference, but it was sort of like bring balance back to the NBA, where it's like everyone's always talking about they have to be bigger, they have to be stronger, they have to be faster, they have to be more athletic. And it's like, how about somebody who's just finesse, who's concentrating more on ball handling and shooting and precision and footwork and just practicing the lost art that seems to kind of get that kind of gets left behind because everyone is so fascinated that you have to be over 7 foot tall, you have to weigh a certain amount, you have to be strong, you have to be athletic, and you can still do that and be any size.
Very true. Came out a couple days ago, Jimmy Butler had some words for the Celtics, and believe it or not, the Knicks. We didn't even play. He said that if he was there, there was no way the Celtics would have won that series. Pat Riley comes back at him, the godfather of basketball right now, tells him if he's not on the floor to shut his mouth. Pat Riley has handled a lot of big personalities. LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal. Jimmy Butler is a kind of a big personality. And Pat Riley doesn't go for any of that stuff. Don't talk smack, if you're not on the floor. And I was glad to see somebody stand up to one of these players and tell him exactly how he felt. I think that, with him wanting that extension, he may not get that now, CJ.
No, he probably won't. And you know what? I think Pat Riley is well within his right to be able to say something to kind of keep his player in line. And you know what? I 100% agree with Pat Riley putting his player on blast or whatever, and basically telling Jimmy Butler, like, hey, look, if you're not on the floor, you're not contributing, you really shouldn't talk smack. And Pat Riley, like you said, is like the godfather of basketball. He's up there with basketball royalty. And just the fact that you got Pat Riley looking down on you and basically telling you to shut your mouth, I think you should listen.
And there's no doubt about that. The 76ers, Daryl Morey, their president, expects a lot of changes in the team. They'll be building around Embiid and Maxey, of course. They definitely need a third player that they can depend on, maybe a little more depth on the bench. The 76ers were expected to maybe play the Celtics in the NBA East Finals. Instead, they're out in the first round, CJ.
Yeah, well, look, the 76ers were a team that had expectations to go deep within the playoffs. The only difference is that the New York Knicks had those same expectations and they were able to get up to the task. Now, that being said, the Sixers are not a bad team, but they did get exposed in a lot of different ways in the first round matchup with the Knicks. So now at least they have a template where they can say, you know what, we have glaring needs in the backcourt, on the bench. We need to get another star player in there. If we're going to build around Embiid, then we need to surround him with talent. So, I expect the 76ers to be active in free agency and also see what's going on in the NBA draft. So, Keith, what say you, my friend? Welcome to the show.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Good, Keith. We're discussing a little bit of we're discussing the playoffs a little bit. Wembanyama. You came in just in time again, Keith. There's a story that I was kind of reading about college basketball and how the pay rate is going to reflect what they're doing on the court. For instance, and this was a bunch of people, their pay scale kind of was a little bit different, but it was still in the same ballpark. What it said was that a college basketball player can make up to $200,000 to $300,000 for being a starter, $500,000 to $750,000 for being all conference, and up to $2 million. If they're really good. And I think college basketball is facing the same thing that college football is facing right now. Why go pro when you're making all this money in college?
For certain guys, sure. I mean, if you're not a first round draft pick and, going to get a guaranteed contract and a signing bonus, then yes, stay. For the college, it isn't as, listen, $200,000 is nothing to sneeze at, right? But it's not as widespread. Some of the bigger money, like the $2 million, is going to be your All-American type players, right? It's going to be only a handful of guys that are going to command that in basketball. In football, heck, Dylan Gabriel just got that for going to Washington from Oklahoma, and he's a good quarterback, but nobody's talking about him being the next great quarterback. So I think in football it's going to be a little bit more than basketball. But as you said, some of these kids who are borderline, they're going to stay, which is probably, in a weird kind of way, might be good for the game, especially in basketball where you've had a lot of one and dones. You may not see as many one and dones. So in a weird way, it might help the game.
Yeah, I mean, why, you have a lot of coaches now, instead of actually building the team, they just use the transfer portal and restack their team now. That's going to leave some kids out in the cold because they need the development that they're not going to get, Keith.
Yeah, well, again, with coaching movement and everything else, and even by design. I mean, Deion Sanders has, for the second year in a row, is pretty much building his team through the transfer portal. He has yet to visit a kid on the recruiting trail since he's been at Colorado. in 2 years. He doesn't believe in it. He thinks you can't build a program that way, which is amazing to me because that's the way it was done for 100 years. But he thinks the transfer portal is the way to go. Big deal was made last year, when he turned over 75 kids. Well, 60 have left the program this year on their own. They've left the program. So it cuts both ways. And a lot of those kids, Mac, don't even find a job, much less get, I'm forgetting the phrase that you use now, but they don't get the needed coaching to improve at that level. Some of them don't even find a way to a new program when they hit the portal. So it's going to talk about story. Nobody talks about that side of it.
Right.
It's interesting that you talk about that there, Keith. I'm sorry, Mac. I just want to jump in there because I have a quick thought. We've talked about this in previous weeks when we've discussed not just professional sports, but also collegiate sports. And one of the biggest things that we're starting to see more and more, as Keith alluded to, is the fact that there is less and less coaching actually taking place, where it's just more so your coach is basically just a facilitator. They just tell you where you need to be, but it just seems like that either you have kids that want to be coached and are not getting the coaching that they need, and then you have kids that are being coached that don't want the coaching because they feel like they already know everything.
Great point.
Yeah.
And they're going to move on from program to program, right? When you tie the NIL to the unlimited transfers, you don't have any restrictions at all now. You can leave. You can go, you've got kids that are going to 4 or 5 schools in 5 years. And that's not going to change because now there are no restrictions at all. They are trying to put in something new. Mac, we talked about it a lot here, right? Of putting in some kind of contractual obligation where if I'm going to pay you money, you're going to agree to stay. There's already talk of the colleges forming their own Players Association and having a collective bargaining agreement with the NCAA. So, and which would in fact probably, number one, it would even a playing field for money for a lot of guys, depending on the level that they're at, most likely, but also might keep guys at a school and not jumping around year to year either.
Yeah, very true. So, guys, let's jump into the NFL for a minute. I was reading this really interesting article about the quarterback. Let me see, Spencer Rattler. He was in a documentary series with 2 other high school quarterbacks.
Great series.
Did you watch that?
QB1. It was on about. They had about 3 or 4 different seasons. He was highlighted in one of them. Yep.
Yeah, and for what happened there, and I guess he got in a little bit of trouble. He got suspended for a code of conduct policy or something like that. Pretty much already acting like a star even before he got to college. And what Rappaport said, he was surprised how many NFL teams had this on their mind going into the draft. And this could be what caused him to fall all the way down into 205th or 50th pick. That, he had this problem. He thinks he's a star. And he finally taken by the Saints. Listen, he has good arm, decent quarterback. I mean, maybe he'll be a good second string, maybe even be a first string one day. But it's, Byron Williams said on his show, on my show before, he's the host of J&B Talking Shop, that the scouts look at everything before the draft, before they draft you. They look at the old grade, your conduct when you were in school. They check your records out. They talk to the neighbors. They want to see what kind of character you have. And I guess they didn't think, that Rattler had good character. What do you think, CJ?
That is exactly what ends up costing college kids that enter into the NFL draft, the draft position. And a perfect example of this, I'm actually going to go back a few years when Mike McCagnon was the GM of the New York Jets, when he drafted Ja'Kai Polite in the 3rd round. Now, I was a big fan of Ja'Kai Polite and also of LaMichael Pirine because they were from the University of Florida. But Ja'Kai Polite, when they actually did the interview with him, the reason why he was actually projected to be a first round pick. He was expected to go within the first 15, 20 picks as a pass rusher. And then he ended up dropping all the way to the third round. So the reason being is because he did not interview well. They found out things that he would show up late for practice, that when he was in practice, he was not listening to his coaches. He was kind of doing his own thing. And all of that, your conduct, whatever you do on the football field, how you conduct yourself on social media, how you conduct yourself in public, how you conduct yourself with other people. I mean, now there are more extensive background checks going on the NFL, the NFL draftees, so to speak, than there ever was before. And I think that that's a good thing. I really do.
Well, Keith, one team that really doesn't give a damn about all that is the Philadelphia Eagles, right? I mean, they don't really care about your character. They want talent. And, Carter, car crash, could have got in trouble, may have got
wow. Taking shots at Pags when he's not here to defend himself.
He'll be on. I ain't scared of Pags. Anyway, Jalen Carter, defensive tackle. They drafted him in the first round, Keith.
Yeah, some teams are going to care more about character than others. It's just like that's never been a different in sports. I don't think. Maybe more teams do care about character today than maybe in the past, but they do dig. To go back to Rattler just for a second, I mean, what happened to him in high school? We still don't know what he did.
Right.
It's still not public knowledge what he did or didn't do, I guess. And he had some issues at Oklahoma when he was there, and some of his own making, some not. It was a very toxic situation that he ended up leaving. But by all accounts, he has matured a lot in the last year at South Carolina, especially this past year, amidst a very tough season at South Carolina. Didn't have a good year, but he was praised by a lot of the people around the program and people that have known him in the past that he has improved. And I think he could be a very surprise pick for the Saints later at some point, with Derek Carr only standing in his way. How long, the thing is, how long are you going to go back and punish kids? They do grow up. Kids do grow up. They're just kids. Remember Josh Allen and the racial remarks that he made when he was like a sophomore in high school that they dug up. And it hurt his draft status, not rounds. He didn't drop 5 rounds, but he ended up getting drafted not in the top 10 because of it. So, again, some of these things are, if they're more recent, I think they're more relevant than probably in the past. But just don't let the air out of footballs, though, in the NFL. That's all.
That's all. That's probably the worst thing you could do. Cowboys don't care either. Jury runs a work release, domestic violence, gambling, everything over there. Yeah,
that's everything.
I would love to get Jimmy Jeffcoat's opinion on this. Where is that ball?
Sonia's not wrong, but that's every team in the NFL can almost claim to have.
No, Sonia's definitely not wrong. I'm saying she's not.
Yeah, that is true. Well, another player that's in trouble again, Rashid Rice. I mean, we all know what happened. With the car accident, he's getting sued. So now he goes to a nightclub. A photographer wants to take a picture of him, and he assaults the photographer. So again, he's probably going to get sued again. And of course, the cops picked him up on assault. So, Keith, you're the general manager of the Chiefs. I mean, how many more chances does this kid get?
Not many. I mean, listen, it's one thing to go out and make a huge mistake. He made a huge mistake with the car and driving, leaving the scene and everything else went around with that. Huge mistake, and we don't even know how that'll get rectified. Right. When you aren't smart enough or mature enough or whatever words we want to use, he's 24. He's not 17. He's 24. That's a big difference. you've got to be able to know that I've got to keep my head down a little bit here until at least this first thing clears up. I've got to start wondering about his maturity level and his understanding of, the facts of life here. And maybe Chiefs might have to cut bait. Again, we talked about the fact that they're in a tough situation already because of the Andy Reid's son situation in Kansas City and getting getting clemency or pardon, I don't remember what the term was, on his accident issue where somebody was killed.
Yeah.
So the Chiefs, I said it at the time, that Chiefs may be faced with a tough decision. This might make it easier for them to just say, you know what, you're not learning your lesson, and we're going to have to let you go.
Sonia, I thought this afternoon, this morning, when I was doing my show, I almost said it, I didn't. But yeah, Rice may be the John Moran of the NFL.
Yeah.
So why is everybody drinking in Kansas City? Is it that bad in that town? That's all I want to know. I mean, everybody's drinking and getting drunk, getting accidents. I don't know. Nothing against
Andy Reid's house and do whatever he's doing and behave themselves.
Right. So there's wow. Anyway,
That's all happened after Taylor Swift showed up on the scene. That's all I can say. I don't.
True, she can drive a man to drink. I heard that about her. So we talked about the Eagles already. What do you guys think about the NFL schedule coming out? I think May 15th is going to come out. I don't think it's going to be a big surprise, right? If you're one of the top teams, you're going to have a harder schedule normally. If you're one of the lower teams, you're going to get an easier schedule. Hopefully, they're going to have the Super Bowl champions playing the runner-ups. They normally do that in the first week. I would imagine they do that again. It's pretty much the same thing every year. CJ, are you looking forward to that schedule come out to see if the Jets play the Giants again this year? They won't, but who knows?
Of course I am. I mean, every year you always take a look at the schedule and you want to see, where your way too early predictions about, we're playing this team, this could be a win, or we're playing that team, we're definitely going to lose to them, and so on. And, now the schedule, the schedule release is always the time when all the NFL fan bases are all going to get pie. Everybody looks to the sky with pie in their eye. And they're all like, dreams of a Super Bowl run. Dreams of this and that. And look, I've done it for many years as a New York Jets fan, where I have sat here and I have said, there is no reason we should lose to this team. There's no reason we should lose to that team. And then you watch a team go, 4-12 or 5-11 multiple years in a row.
Yeah.
So it's, for me, I would like to see a little bit more. I don't know if I want to say parity, because I don't think that would be the proper word. But I really would like to see a little bit more of the bounce, where it's like, okay, teams with a crappy record get an easier schedule. Teams with a good record get a harder schedule. I kind of would like to, if it were up to me, I kind of would like to balance that out, because I just think that bad teams are going to stay bad regardless of whoever they're playing.
I agree.
And good teams are going to continue to be good no matter who they play. So to me, as far as I'm concerned, is you're throwing down the gauntlet to these teams that finish 1-15 or 2-14 every year, and they're always tanking for draft picks. And let's tank for this guy and tank for that guy. You need to start putting these franchises on notice and say, look, we're no longer going to tolerate this garbage. You guys need to put a competitive product on the football field, spend the money, go upgrade your talent departments, and go out there and put something respectable on the field.
Well, CJ, I disagree with you there. I don't think any team really tanks. They got jobs they got to worry about. They got families to feed. They want to play again next year. And if they're going to tank, no team's going to want to have them on their team.
I think they're not going to publicly say it.
You could tell. I mean, you could tell when a team gives up.
Ever tank. Teams try to tank, but I don't think players ever tank. You could take a guy off the field so he can't play,
Right.
And play somebody worse. But so the
go.
team may try to tank, but I can't see players ever, wanting to lose ever.
That's because you got 22 individual businesses that are out there on the field trying to make sure that they're working on their brand. So
Right.
it's just all dependent upon what the franchise is looking at.
And God help the coach that pulls a player off the field so that they do lose a game. I don't think he'll be coaching around the NFL either.
No.
So it's very, as you said, very hard to tank if they are in fact trying to tank. Go ahead, Keith.
Back to the schedule just for a second. Just the fact that the NFL can generate the kind of hoopla they have around the announcement of this football schedule, which we know you're going to play all these, 2 times against everybody in your division. If you had a 5th place schedule, you're going to play all the other 5th place teams. We all know pretty much what it's going to look like, and you play who you got to play. But the NFL has done a great job of making a big spectacle of everything they do, including announcing the schedule, which is kind of crazy, but it's a great marketing department over there.
Yeah, they've been announcing this for a week, and of course, they already knew what teams they were going to play almost a couple weeks after the season was over. I would imagine. Keith, what do you think about balance in the NFL? I like it when there's 1 or 2 teams that are kind of dominating. They're like the villains of the league, right? And all these teams are trying to go and knock them off. The Patriots were that for a while. And I don't think the Cowboys were ever that since the 90s, but there have been teams that have been vilified like that. And I think it's good for all sports, especially the NFL.
I've always said every sport is better off with a team that's dominant or a couple teams that are dominant, and people hate because it generates interest. You know what? If the NFL had their way, we'd have a bunch of 9-8 teams and, all kinds of tiebreakers for the playoffs, and they'd be very happy. Right. I don't think the real average fans want that. They want to see good teams and bad teams. That's the natural order of things, not everybody being on the same level playing field. And the NFL's tried to get parity for years, right? And they've kind of gotten to that point. I mean, we get teams every year, it seems now, with losing records or close to losing records in the playoffs. And I don't. I'd rather watch teams go 15-1, 16-1, I guess now, and that would generate more excitement for me and more interest in that team than a bunch of 9-8 teams fighting it out.
See, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that though, because to me, especially with the wild card chases and stuff like that, and you already know who your division winners are going to be, but now when you start having 5 or 6 teams all fighting for 2 or 3 playoff spots. To me, I think that garners a lot more interest because now you're not only getting those fan bases of those teams that are in that mix involved, but now you're starting to get the casual fans starting to say, I wonder what the Rams did this week. I wonder if they're still, I wonder what, this team did this week or whatever. And then even the casual fan is always going to look toward a stretch run. You even see this in baseball, in the wild card races. I mean, a lot of there's moderate interest in March, April, May, but really where baseball's bread and butter is the end of August, beginning of September, because that's your stretch run going to the playoffs, where guys are looking at the standings and stuff like that. So, I mean, to me, it's I like the wild card chase.
I think Keith will agree with me here. Listen, baseball is regional, right? When a wild card team say Kansas City is in the wild card, nobody in New York gives a damn if Kansas City is in a wild card race. If the San Diego Padres are in the wild card race, nobody in Philadelphia gives a damn if they're in the wild card race. It's a regional sport where the NFL is more national, and there may be more interest in that. But honestly, CJ, I don't care about the Rams, the Packers, any of those teams. I want my team there. I want to watch my team. And not that I don't love football, I do. But I don't have as much interest if somebody from this area, from the Northeast, is not in the playoffs as opposed to someone from the Southwest.
You would, though, and I agree with you. I do agree with you, Mac. But you would have interest in the Packers or the Chargers. You know, if they were doing something historic. Casual fans tune in for things that are historic and don't happen every day. They're not going to tune into Monday Night Football for 2, 8 and 7 teams. Their fans will show up, as Max said. But the casual fan, they don't necessarily care. Now, if you got a team that's going for an undefeated season, you're going to have people show up that wouldn't normally watch football ever.
Agreed.
But
True.
the chance of that happening is small, right, the way the game today.
Right. Or any kind of record to be broken, a Super Bowl, touchdowns, rushing.
Yeah, I'm just,
yeah.
Anything will get casual fans. Horse racing. Look at horse racing. It's a very hardcore sport. You're a hardcore racing fan or you're not, basically. But when you get to the Triple Crown races, if you have a horse going for a Triple Crown, the casual interest skyrockets the interest in the Belmont. So, it's the same way in all sports.
Let's get to some of the comments. Good evening, Rick. Glad to have you on. As always, we have our Sonia Pearson, our Sports Leader Network, of course, also a Carolina Panther fan, and that's why she makes this remark.
That's why she's so disgruntled here. That's why.
Yes. So she doesn't like the super or the invincible teams. She doesn't want everyone to lose either, so that's her good side. And she takes a shot at Keith. Good teams, but not good cheating teams, aka the Patriots. So
it's a one trick. You're all one trick ponies here. Come on.
Wow. Listen, I didn't even take a shot at Keith. And if there's anybody who's got a right to,
I will have to say,
because I'm in the goddamn division.
CJ, I will say this because since I've been on this show and I've been on with him, he's a guy who, we stole their signs, and he's been the most respectful of our dominance of anybody. So,
yes,
probably because beat him in his, but that's whatever.
Steve,
I do respect that, CJ. Thank you.
Steven is Steven or Apellos is hi, Keith. Sonia's trying to backpedal right now. She's saying she didn't take a shot that Robert did. What are you talking about, Sonia?
Robert.
Actually, you know what?
Okay.
Sorry, this Robert. I don't know.
She agrees with him, though. I know she agrees with him.
I've said forever. Again, we talked earlier about all the bad acts in football, right? The murderers, the rapists, the women abusers and drug abusers and weapons felons. But don't let the air out of a football because it's really bad for you to do that. So
that is true. That is true. And as you can see, I'm kind of flip-flopping through the banners. I'm not sure what show I'm on. Yeah, so we were with the Mac and Jack Sports Show for about 2 seconds.
That's okay.
Now we're back to where we're supposed to be. Yes. So let's jump into Major League Baseball. The Chicago White Sox. What the hell's going on in Chicago? 6 wins. 6. They have 6 more than me, and I don't even play baseball, Keith. So 6 wins for Chicago. They're ready to trade off some of their superstars there or their stars. This wasn't what they were last year, CJ. Last year, they had a fairly successful year.
Yeah, they did. But, like I said, and one of the things that's starting to bring people back to baseball is, again, some of these teams coming out of nowhere with an unbeaten streak or winning streak, or they go and they knock off, like a perennial power like the Dodgers or the Yankees, or they sweep a series. So that's how baseball is going to have to do things in order for them to keep up with everybody else. Because, look, right now, if you think about it in the nation, you got football is number 1, basketball is number 2, ice hockey has clearly taken over number 3, and baseball has dropped down to maybe 4th or even 5th. Because you even have NASCAR auto racing coming up there with people that are interested. So
you talk about a regional sport. That's very regional to
well,
NASCAR.
not only that, I mean, look, we all know NASCAR has a huge following across the country. They got pools and bars and all kinds of stuff. But I mean, we're talking about the major 5 here. Look, and add one with boxing. I don't think that hockey has replaced baseball yet. I think hockey is playing playoffs right now. The interest is huge. And baseball is only played 30 games so far. So hockey, of course, right now would have an advantage over baseball. Not that I love hockey. I love playoff hockey. It's one of my favorite things to watch. And we'll talk about that because I know CJ's itching to get to the NHL. Talk about Boston. They're up 2-0.
Before you go there real quick, I mean, I think baseball's still number 2. The NBA has not surpassed baseball.
Really?
I do not think that at all. Look, again, there are hardcore basketball fans, but I think there are more. I think overall, look, the TV contracts still spell it out, right? The TV contract's still higher in baseball than it is for basketball. Again, you can watch, you can get national games every night of the week. You can't find them because they're on 18 different networks, but I still think baseball's ahead of basketball. Now, this time of year, to go to Mac's point, the NHL and NBA is ahead of the Major League Baseball right now because this is the high point of the year for them, right? With the playoffs. And there's nothing better, as an NHL, I'm a Ranger fan, but I'm more of a fair weather NHL fan, quite frankly, because when the Rangers aren't doing well, I'm not paying as close attention. But Game 7s in the NHL are more exciting than any sport out there in the playoffs. So, it's got its niche.
I agree.
But overall, I think baseball's still there. And the White Sox, by the way, are on 127 loss pace, which would break the record by 7 games. I follow these things for my Major League Baseball update, always rooting for somebody to break that 120 loss record.
And Keith fearlessly promoting his show, the MLB Update. I'm very proud of him doing that. So.
On the national,
such a shameless plug.
That's fine, Keith. I have no problem with that at all. Keeping me in baseball right now. I'm trying to get to your hockey, but we're going to stay in baseball a couple minutes here. Phillies are on fire. There's no doubt. Philadelphia not only has an offense this year, they got one of the best pitching staffs in the league. So I expect them to do real good this year. We'll see what happens when they meet up against the Dodgers in the playoffs. That should be a good series. You're going to see the Dodgers to see if they can do it. I mean, they haven't done it in the last few years. Can they do it this year?
The Phillies are a little behind Jamie's 162 win season pace, though. They're a little behind that.
They are behind that a little bit. Let's get back to the comments pretty soon. Here, well, let's do it now. Let's see. What about Ohtani? Are we going to talk about Ohtani wiring money every show now? I mean,
Heck is
this?
What? Sonia? Who are the housewives? What is she talking about?
I think what is that? Is that the Real Housewives? Is that what we're talking about? Real Housewives of New Jersey or something? I don't know.
Is that still on?
Yeah, listen. Ohtani's playing great on the field. Let's stop talking about him wiring money, covering bets. I mean, come on. Give the guy a break, right? He's still not Babe Ruth. He doesn't pitch as good as Babe Ruth did, but he's still a great ball player. The Mariners are looking great this year. Robert, they're barely in first or second place right now.
4 games over 500. It's not great.
Great is very very suspicious for there.
And the pitching's good up there too. It's not historic. This isn't Koufax and Drysdale up there.
They probably don't even know who that is, Keith. Ohtani's interpreter. Sonia, we don't care about that either. Give us more Taylor Swift information. That's what we're looking for here. Boycott the NBA. They stole my Sonics.
You got to be on the show to defend yourself, Sonia. It's too hard to do in the comments.
Yes. Boycott the NBA. Everybody's going to do that, Robert. My Sonics, Durant was a Sonic. Have not watched a game since they left. And they're very upset about that too, Robert. I was talking to him just yesterday. He said, damn, I wish Robert was still following us. And I said, he's a Sonic guy.
Durant was a Sonic. They wouldn't build them a stadium, and they left. So
Right. I mean, there you go. We're not talking junk. We're speaking the truth, Sonia. That's what we do on this show. So anyway, what else I got left here? Before we get to NHL, I keep putting it's nothing personal, CJ. I want to hear your breakdown. I want to talk boxing first. Inoue, undisputed champion, wins the fight. Got knocked down, gets back up, and he gets, I'm not going to do the song, but he gets up, he knocks out Chris Curry. Am I saying it right? Let me see. I think it's Chris Curry. He knocks him out in the 6th round and keeps his championship alive. He is not going, guys. He said, I'm not going up in weight, sort of like Marvin Hagler, stayed a middleweight all his life. He didn't go up either. He's going to stay at super bantamweight division and make it his own. So good for him. Great job by Inoue. Anybody who doesn't know him, he's the best Japanese fighter out there, probably next to Bruce Lee, I would think, Keith. So anyway, there you go.
That's pretty strong.
CJ. Yes, CJ. Finally, we're going to get to the NHL update where the Bruins are 2-0. The Rangers are still pushing on. The Knights are out, right?
The Knights are out. The Knights are out. That's why I was kind of hoping that Pags would have been here, because one of the things that I wanted to ask him was his Stanley Cup final prediction with the Rangers meeting the Vegas Golden Knights and the Golden Knights winning their 2nd straight Stanley Cup. I just wanted to ask him how that prediction was working out for him. But,
yes.
Unfortunately, Pags is not here to defend himself. So I'll save that one in the back pocket first. But
okay, good.
Real quick, just let me start in the Western Conference. Oilers Canucks, looking forward to game 1 tonight. That's going to be a showdown. I have a feeling that's going to easily go 6 or 7 games, because you have firepower versus firepower. And Vancouver, though, I would give them the edge as far as defense. Edmonton's defense is just still a little bit suspect. But because Vancouver does not have Thatcher Demko in net, I don't know. I would have to give the goaltending edge possibly to Edmonton, but their backup has actually played very well. So going to be very interesting to see how game 1 breaks down tonight. Very much looking forward to that. Bruins and Panthers. Okay. I know I'm jumping to the Eastern Conference a little bit. This is the series that I have my eye on, especially because the Bruins are looking for payback versus the Panthers. But the Panthers, statistically on paper, okay, personnel-wise on paper, are actually a much better team this year than they fielded last year and made it to a Stanley Cup final. So this is going to probably be just as good of a heavyweight bout as Rangers Carolina. But I'm going to talk about that in a little bit second. I want to go back to the Western Conference for a little bit there. Dallas, what the hell was going on last night? You had a 3-0 lead at the end of 1. You let Colorado push that to overtime, and then you cough it up in overtime. Come on. You can't lose games like that. If you're going to consider yourself a Stanley Cup contender, I know it's only game 1, but come on. You can't cough up games like that. You have to learn how to put teams away. So, this is not the Winnipeg Jets that you faced before. So let's Colorado Avalanche Dallas Stars series is definitely easily going 6 games. Easily going 6 games. Possibly 7. I still think Dallas will come out on top. But if they have more games like they played last night where they're coughing up leads, I don't know. Just can't. Just can't do it. But now flipping over to the Eastern Conference, of course, I talked about already Boston and Florida. That's a tremendous heavyweight fight. That series is definitely going 7 games, and it would not surprise me if at least 3 out of those 7 games go to double overtime or even triple overtime with the way that those firepowers are. Swayman is completely playing out of his mind. Bobrovsky he's playing out of his mind right now. They both are playing next level. And the Bruins, interesting, very curious to see if in this series they go to Linus Ullmark. Keep your eye on that, because all year they've rotated their goaltenders. Right now, Swayman's been carrying the load clear into the playoffs. Got to see if that comes back to bite them. But so far, right now, Now, Marty Necas, of course, we got to talk. We got to talk Rangers Carolina.
Okay.
If you want to talk about a game that statistically the Rangers should have lost last night, analytics tells you game 2 they always let the air out of the balloon.
Don't say that, Eric. Don't let the air out of stuff.
But here's the deal. Last night, the Rangers, in my opinion, took Carolina's best shot on the chin and still got up and found a way to beat that game. But the Rangers got to find a way to stay out of the damn penalty box. Jacob Trouba cannot take 2 bad penalties, which he took last night, although one of them was, okay? They have to find a way to stay out of the penalty box, because even though their penalty kill right now is perfect, they are a perfect 10 for 10 on the penalty kill. Their power play is red hot right now, but you need to start getting that 5-on-5 scoring, because if you don't, you're going to have problems the deeper you go into the playoffs. And sooner or later, someone's going to figure out how to stop that power play. Now, that being said, we all know Rangers history over the past couple of years, having 2-0 lead. Oh, yeah, coughed it up in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Oh, how about last year, okay, when we got our asses handed to us in 7 games by the New Jersey Devils, who didn't even have any business being in the playoffs last year. All right, so I guarantee you, Peter Laviolette is giving everybody in that locker room a slice of humble pie and saying, you know what? You guys think you won? You haven't won anything yet. And even last night during the post-game interviews, you talked to Mika Zibanejad, you talked to Chris Kreider, you talked to Vinny Trocheck, who ended up scoring the game-winning goal in double overtime. You see it on their face. They're like, we're not done. They're like, yeah, we won tonight, but we're not done.
All right.
Even Igor Shesterkin, who was stopping everything in their mother, that game made it to overtime because of him.
At the end of the day, though, CJ, isn't everybody except for Sonia and Panther fans just waiting for the original 6 matchup of Bruins, Rangers, and East? I mean,
I don't know about that, though. I don't know about that, because
I'm gonna.
Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, I wanted to get to some of the comments because they're rolling in furiously here, especially from Sonia, who for some reason I know she's a little sick and her throat is bothering her. I tell her, maybe she should use honey down her throat or something.
Come on now. Stop it.
But
Stop it now.
Anyway, Martin Necas, she's talking about Martin Necas. Yes, he's ready to move on. He's been ready to move on for a couple weeks now. Mitch Marner waves his no move close. She's asking, listen, CJ already told you all that information that you need to know.
No. Mitch Marner,
yes.
If he waives his no trade clause,
yeah.
If Carolina ends up losing this series to the Rangers, Rod Brind'Amour, you heard it here first. Rod Brind'Amour will be the head coach of the Seattle Kraken. Marty Necas will follow him there. Mitch Marner will follow him there. And don't be surprised if Austin Matthews says, I'm out. And leaves Toronto.
CJ, nobody wants to go to Seattle. Let's be honest. I mean, did you see the weather there? Nobody wants to play in Seattle.
Listen,
the weather
you got
stinks.
Ronnie Francis as head of hockey operations over there. He's got a lot of friends in the NHL, and I know that he would love to bring Rod Brind'Amour in there and have him be the front man.
And of course, she's the Carolina. I guess is that Carolina Hurricanes?
Yeah.
Yes. Of course, she is cheering them on, because that you can't cheer on the Panthers. CJ is preaching. Yes, he was. Steven, well, somebody else comes in. Rangers don't have to worry about penalties because they don't shoot that many shots when they have a penalty. Oh, there you go. So he looks like he's got the Rangers.
Penalties.
Well, also, talk about penalties over there. Every time Carolina gets a power play, you have, Svechnikov sitting on a defenseman. All right. You have Sebastian Aho tripping somebody. So one of them ends up in the box, which basically negates their power play. And that's happened for the second straight game. So, I mean.
Yes. Self-destruction. That's what I call it, CJ.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Sonia, I don't know if she's laughing about CJ preaching or whether I made fun of her Panthers again or not.
Hysterical.
Thank you. It's an awesome show, Sonia. Yes, it is. Wish you were here. It would be a lot more awesomer, if that's a word. Folks, thanks for tuning in to our show tonight. Always fun. Great comments. A lot of likes and loves. CJ, great job. Keith, as always, thanks for coming on. And, of course, stay with, our Roku channel, North National Streaming Sports Roku channel. Shows all night, folks, including Prim and Proper Sports, who will be on later. And have a great Wednesday, and we shall see you soon.